Good evening. We want to thank all of you for joining us here tonight for another live event with Apostolic Moral Purity, otherwise known as AMP. Our last session, you saw us live at our first Apostolic Moral Conference, Apostolic Moral Purity Conference to be exact, in Bloomington, Illinois, which was a success. You may hear a little bit more about that here in a little bit. But we just are very much, we're honored to be able to participate in the healing process in the lives of those who participate in the AMP program, which there's several different facets of it. And one of those is what we do here with our live events. So it is, as we say in all of our sessions here, it is a passion of ours and a desire, a burden, to be honest, to be a part of and to see the healing and restoration in the lives of every participant. So we strive to provide a place of hope, a place of healing, to let you know that you are not alone, because we want you to know that this is a safe place, a safe space for everybody that is involved. So thank you for joining us here tonight. Dr. Surstead, it's great to see you here tonight. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, doing very well. Busy week last week, but here we are again. And this is definitely different than our last time with Brother Beavis and the last recording, but here we are. And excited about our guests tonight. Just looking forward to being with them, and just great to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be great. And I was just thinking the same thing. Our last session was in that very nice upstairs studio with a leather sectional sofa and cool lights and all of that. And now we're just in this. But we're here together, and great to see everybody here tonight. For those of you who've seen several of other interviews, you're going to notice somebody missing. And that is because Brother Evan Miller and his wife, Sister Dorian, they are away in a faraway land on a vacation, much deserved. And we do miss them here tonight. So probably watch this later, and we forgive you for not being here, but we love you and we honor your vacation. Just kidding. You deserve it. We love you very much. All right. Well, we have some special guests tonight. We've got Brother and Sister David and Sandy Frederick from Monroe, Louisiana. God bless you. Thank you so much for joining us here for our live interview.
Thank you for allowing us to be here.
Yeah, we feel privileged.
Well, we're privileged to have you. And what would make this better is if we already would eat some crawfish while we're just sitting here having this discourse. I just can't help bring up crawfish every time I talk to you guys. All right, well, let's dive in here. Now, speaking of the Apostolic Moral Conference, Moral Purity Conference that was held in Bloomington, Illinois last month, we recently, I met you for the first time there at the conference in Illinois, and it was a pleasure to meet you. And we're very, very excited to hear your story here tonight. You may be nervous a little bit. Don't worry about it. You guys are going to be great. I'm very excited about this. Could you share with us how you first came in contact with Apostolic Moral Purity?
Yes, it was a process. I guess in 2020 was my first discovery. My wife found pornography on my phone. And so we went for a year, individual counseling, trying to work something out and get some kind of traction with healing our marriage and healing our relationship. The following year in 2021, I went to men's conference in Louisiana, at Louisiana District Men's Conference. And they flashed a Apostolic Moral Purity ad on the screen. And they had a QR code, and I scanned it with my phone. That got me in touch with Dr. Surstead. And he in turn got me in touch with Brother Husledge and the AMP recovery groups. And so that was in April of 2021 or 2022. And I joined the AMP recovery group, and it's made a world of difference in my life and in our marriage. Sandy also got involved when they started up the Hope for Healing for the ladies. She got involved with that group. And with both of us working on a recovery from separate ends, it's been marvelous.
I remember that. I'm sorry.
No, you're
Go
good.
ahead. Go. I was just going to say, I remember that phone call, really, David. It has been just over a year. And I typically don't talk nowhere as fast, nowhere like half as fast, maybe as you. Maybe we'd have to time that out. But I'm really this fast talking guy for Louisiana, and had no clue what was in store for you. But very thankful to get that phone call. So I digress, Brother Lewis. Go ahead.
I think it's fantastic just to hear how this came around. And I love the fact that at a conference, QR code on the screen, boom, you get it, and that opens the door. That's awesome. I think it's fantastic. And
You know what's cool with that? Let me interject here. What's cool with that, Brother Lewis, is that Brother Dean, Jerry Dean, that was his last year there as Louisiana District Men's Director. And nobody asked him to do that. Nobody asked him to do that. And I had been at the National Men's board meeting, Men's Ministries board meeting. He was there, and they let me talk for a little bit. But at the men's conference there in Louisiana, nobody asked him to do that. So this connection was really, as with many other connections that we've experienced to this point, was really a God thing. And I'm so thankful that Brother Dean flashed that up on the screen, or had it flashed up.
I was disappointed when the ladies didn't get their fair share, because when I went to conference this year, all I could think about was the previous year that I'd gone, and at that time was hurting and so lonely, and there to hear a word and not being able to talk to anybody, and you just in this turmoil. And when I came this year, that was over, and I thought, but who else is sitting here like I was 2 years ago? Because we do ours every other year for the women. Who else here today? 60%, even if it's 10% of ladies that are here today suffering as I was suffering, if they would just had something that they could have come home with. Because he was so excited, and I was so excited when he came home, and then it fell into place. So that's just, how I felt. I wish we would have had something at Ladies Conference this year, maybe next time.
And I appreciate you sharing that, Dr. Surstad, when you're saying that. The month before, I was at our Florida District Men's Conference, and I presented Apostolic Moral Purity, and Brother Dean was there sitting on my left, and heard I spoke about 15 minutes and presented AMP and had the QR code on the screen and everything. So all that, when you're telling me that, you're sharing that, Brother David, all this, I'm like, that's so awesome. And you're right, Sister Sandy, that there are other people that are hurting, but God's opening this door. And on that note, Sister Sandy, why don't you share with us, tell us how that you guys met and how long you've been married, and share some of that with us.
Well, we'll be married. We've been married 37 years. We'll be 38 this December. We met in South Louisiana. We were both going to the same church. I was fixing to go with some friends who were fixing to start a home missions church in at that time, Colorado, and I was waiting on them to get placed. I was going to go help them with their children, when they taught Bible studies, and David was a new member, and we actually kind of got, some of the singles got together and formed a little outing, and it was supposed to be just the women, because at that time I wasn't really into dating. I had this other on my mind, and we got together at a state park, and it ended up that the women were going to go and stay the weekend and play games. And it ended up, the men were going to, this part, they did not tell me that the men were going to come till about 9. And so when I got there, then the men came and we were playing games. And honestly, we were just really having a good time. So they decided to go for a walk. And we were walking side by side, and some nutras, if you don't know what that is, it's our state animal, I guess. I don't know. I think it is really, but it ran across the road, and we both he grabbed my hand and I grabbed his, frightened. And immediately I felt this connection. It was, you hear stories of love at first sight, or, whatever. But the minute we held hands, I felt God, and I could feel the electricity run through my body. And from there we began to date, and then we married, and we're here today.
That's awesome. Nutras. I know what they are.
So what are they?
It's like a big water rat.
Between a beaver and a water rat, I would say.
Yeah.
They have huge teeth.
Cool. So, Brother David, tell us a little bit about your story, your background, how it affected your marriage, how it affected your family, if you would.
Yeah. So we got married in 1986, 85. And I already had problems. I had been exposed to pornography in my teens. I was 30 years old when we got married, and I'd never been married before. And it didn't take me long. I always had this thing in my mind that if I could just get married, then life would be happily ever after. All my problems would be over. My problems with pornography would be over, and everything would just be hunky-dory from there on. And it didn't take me long to figure out that marriage was not the cure. And our marriage suffered as a result. We rocked along. I guess we'd been married about 12 years, and my thing was always mostly fantasy. I would see somebody and I would fantasize about them, and I would go home and I would masturbate thinking about them, fantasizing about them. And I wound up having an affair with a woman in our church after we'd been married about 12 years. We separated for about 5 months. We were on the brink of divorce, and I went to a church service and prayed through and asked her to forgive me, and we got back together. And it's been a process since then of dealing with that. The pornography continued in different forms. I guess it got the worst when I got an iPhone, and I discovered that I could access pornography on my phone. I found websites out there where I could view nudes, and that just set my fantasy world off to a new level. And there was a period of several years where I denied my wife. I would take care of myself and just ignore her needs, ignore her wants. Basically, we were roommates. We just lived together and just coexisted for the kids' sakes, and spent some miserable years together. And we had gotten to the point, I had several, I guess you call them emotional affairs. Didn't have any more physical affairs, but I had several emotional affairs, and the fantasy was always there, and it was always distracting from my marriage, and always ignoring my wife's needs and ignoring her desires, and just taking care of myself. And it culminated in 2020, like we discussed earlier, when she discovered pornography on my phone. And that was the first discovery. And I went for a year without viewing pornography, but I continued to fantasize and continued to masturbate. And then in April of 2022 was the last time I guess that was the second discovery. And then 3 weeks later, I found AMP and began a process of recovery. And it's like night and day. I've talked to members in the group about the longer you abstain, the easier it is to abstain. And I know that being a sex addict and a pornography addict, that once an addict, always vulnerable. So I have to constantly be on my guard. With the fantasy and the masturbation, it's the same thing. The longer you go without, the easier it is to do without. And I've learned that through my recovery and by working the 12 steps, that it's just been I've discovered things about myself that I never understood. A lot of the reasons why I did the things I did, and it's helped me to grow and become more the man of God that God intended me to be. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I'm being more of the husband that my wife has desired all these years. It's almost, I mean, there's been some rocky times in this past year, but it's been so much better, and it's almost like a honeymoon all over again for us, because my attention and my affection is all on my wife now instead of on myself. And that's pretty much it.
So just give us a little perspective, if you would, as to your history, your relationship with God, church. When did you start serving the Lord?
I was not raised apostolic. I was raised in a different religion. I got into the Pentecostal church in 1985. In fact, I'd been in church for about, I guess, a month when Sandy and I met. I'd gotten the Holy Ghost in 82, and I tried to reconcile in my mind, why can't I just pray through over this? I'd go to the altar and I'd pray and ask God to deliver me, and then turn right around and go back out and do the same thing all over again. And it was frustrating because I spent years basically leading a double life, because I'd go to church and try to worship and try to be a man of God, but then I had this deep, dark secret that I couldn't tell anybody about. Or I felt like if I told somebody, they would run screaming. That was the lie the devil kept me trapped with for so many years, was that if anybody ever found out, then they would reject you and they'd run from you. And that kept me hiding things. And so since I've been in recovery, I can finally go to the altar and raise my hands, lift up holy hands without wrath or doubting, and know that I'm walking as pure as I can walk right now. And I feel like when I pray now, my prayers are being heard. And I know that God had his hand on me throughout the whole time, that he was with me, even in my darkest times. He wasn't condoning my sin, but he was loving me in spite of my sin, and still drawing me the whole time, still orchestrating my steps and guiding my steps.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, and I want to make sure I am, if I am hearing you correctly, you were married for all those years, what, 32 years, 33, something like that?
35.
That you're, yeah, but where I'm going 32 years, I think, before your wife found out about your addiction? Am I hearing that?
Yes.
So,
She knew something was going on, but she didn't know what.
Yeah, I knew something was going on, and he had the affair. But even after that, I knew something wasn't right. There just wasn't something right. He was faithful to church. He was a worshiper. He read his Bible every day. But there was something not right. There was something missing in our marriage.
So one of the things that I've noticed in our Facebook following, I'd like numbers, and we're about 6 or 7 away from 1,400 followers at this point. But one of the things I noticed is that in the demographic arena, that from 18, I think, to 34, something like that, the males are like 2 to 1 as far as following Facebook, and that goes all the way up. There's more men following Facebook than women until it gets to about 55, I think it is. And it may be a little bit younger than that, but somewhere right in there. And then it evens out. And then the next demographic, it's okay, so like 45 to 55, somewhere in there, it evens out. And then the next at 55 to 65, there's more women that are following than men, just a little bit more. And then even 65 and plus, a little bit more. And so in throwing all that together, and I hope I don't confuse anybody with this line of reasoning, but what I'm hearing is, it may make sense there, is it's possible to stay married and still cover this up, still hide this, even 32 years is in your situation. So just because somebody, and I don't want to scare, I want to be careful how I say this, but it's possible that even couples, their 50s or 60s, that the husband or the wife, because it could be one or the other, or maybe even both, that they've been hiding it all these years, knowing something's wrong, but not be able to definitively tell me real quickly here before we move on. And you may have already mentioned this. If you did, just do it again one more time. How did your wife find out that there was a pornographic problem?
Want me to tell?
Yeah.
Well, basically, I still didn't suspect porn. I was having some physical ailments with my blood pressure. I couldn't get it down. And they felt like it was more than physical, like I had some stressors. And so they had a psychiatrist talk to me, and he's the one that told me to start looking for it, because I told him exactly what was happening in my marriage at that point. And he told me that he by what I was telling him, he was saying that he was addicted to porn. And I'm like, I've never seen porn. But I had, and I didn't tell him this, when I'm the tech savvy person of our home. And when David would have problems with his email or whatever, he would come to me. And when I would go on his email, there would be all these advertisements, that you get in email. And I would ask him about those advertisements, David. I mean, it would be hundreds. And it was porn. And he'd say, I try to go on there and unsubscribe, and I can't get rid of it. And I'd say, well, don't click on unsubscribe, because they know you see it. You're seeing it. And I knew how that worked. And so I would put filters. Well, a few months later, he would be back to having problems, or something was giving him a problem. But I still, seeing that, it did not connect in my mind that he was going to sites, until this man sat me down and said, I'm going to tell you that your husband has a porn addiction. He has all the signs of what you're telling me is going on in your marriage. And so I came home, and he told me what to look for, and I had a chance to get on his phone. And I trusted him. I mean, he would let me have access to his phone. I know his password. He knows mine, and he never tried to hide anything. And I found it. It came up, and then I went to he got a message. And so I opened his phone up, and I went to his history, and there was probably months of unclosed history that was on there of nothing but these sites.
I appreciate you guys, your transparency. This is awesome. David, you sharing it, and Sandy both, and your honesty. It's fantastic, which is no doubt, that's why you are where you are now. God's done a great work. It's fantastic. If you would, could you share like your path or the progress to healing and restoration that's taken place between the two of you? Both of you can speak on this. Share with us, some of that, your journey.
You want to go first?
I can't.
Go ahead.
Well, the journey, of course, I've always just thought throughout the years that he was just having affairs. I didn't suspect the porn until I found it, or till I was told that's what I needed to look for. But I began to research. I've always been the one to go to counseling. And again, I had started counseling, and I was doing the research and going to counseling. Of course, the counselor I was going to is not a CSAT, or she's not, she doesn't even do marriage counseling. She was strictly to help me, but she would give me resources. But it really, right before he found Aunt, was getting bad because, all these years I could feel all this. And now I know, and I have this knowledge, and I was 60 years old. I just didn't want to do this anymore. And for the first time in our marriage, I was ready to throw in the towel. I didn't feel like that I could do it anymore. My energy was just zapped. My health was going down from the pressure of all these years of the neglect and the unfulfilled life, and then the blaming, the gaslighting. Because if I were to try to talk to him, knowing something was wrong, he'd always somehow make me feel like it was me, or whatever they do to not reveal what's going on in their life. And of course, I would always take it on, and so therefore my health began to fail. But I thought, I can't do this anymore, and so I really wanted to separate. I had talked to my pastor's wife. I had talked to my counselor, and I was, I had talked to family for the first time ever, because I never talked to anybody ever. And so that was my plan. But then my counselor asked me not to make the decision. My pastor's wife asked me to wait, and we would pray about it. And so I honored that, but in my heart, I just didn't feel like I could do it. I would wake up in the day and think, I can't fight this today. I just have no strength. And in my mind, all I could see was what everybody was telling me was this years of counseling. And I'm 60, and I'm thinking years of counseling, I'll be in the nursing home. We'll still be counseling and working on this. And then we found Aunt. Of course, I had found some other resources online. I would even Google, what do you do if your husband, is addicted to porn? And I would get these podcasts, and we were both going to that. And he was willing. I'd say, hey, would you just listen to this podcast? And he was willing, but we just couldn't break that barrier. And finally, when he came home with Aunt, he came home because he was seeing the second counselor because the first one didn't work out. And I was still seeing the same counselor, and we were, still struggling. And he came home with Aunt, and he started Aunt, and then I started Aunt. And I was amazed because I'm still thinking, by now I'm 63 this year, and last year I was 62, and before Christmas I was thinking, I'll be close to 70. I'll be, about 68 years old. And I would still have days I'd wake up and say, I just don't want to do this. I just can't. I'd call him and I'd say, hey, I'm triggered today. I don't think I can do this. I'm having one of those days where I do not want to battle anymore. And he would pray with me. But I was amazed that once we got Aunt, how fast it went. Immediately, I saw a difference in him. For the first time, I saw the man that I thought I'd marry for the first time in all these years. And then it was opened up for me. And once I was able to have someone support that you can call, and others that know exactly what you've been through. It may not be this very same thing, but the feelings and a lot of it is the same. A lot of it is like a character trait almost. And having that and having prayer, being able to say, will you pray with me, and know that they know where you're coming from. They have the apathy for it, and they understand. And once that happened, it was just a matter of just even weeks. I mean, by Christmas, we were doing great. And honestly, this year, here we are in May, fixing to be June. And we haven't struggled at all this year, not at all. And this used to be a kind of like a quarterly thing. It was all we ever fought about, and we haven't fought. We both putting in the work, putting in the time, staying with our support groups. Support groups, I would say, is just about 100% of the battle. If you can, with a support group, it's just amazing. The resources that you get, having that support, having that camaraderie, it's just amazing. So yeah, this year is just, I don't see it now as a long period. I now see it as fixed. Now, I know in my mind that we will work on this, but it's enjoyable to work on because I have friends and, watching them get healed, watching their homes go back together, watching our prayers answered together. It's just that community of support that makes all the difference, makes 100% of the difference.
The communication's never been my strong suit. It's been a lot of our problems through the years is my inability to, our unwillingness to open up and be honest with her. And that's one of the things that I've learned through recovery is how to get in touch with my feelings and how to express myself to her, how to ask the right questions and how to give the right answers. It's such a relief now that I can lay my phone on the counter and know that if she picks it up, there's nothing there. I don't have to have a heart attack when she picks up my phone because there's nothing there that I'm hiding anymore. My life is an open book, and it's such a relief. And the things that I've learned through recovery, through going to the meetings and being able to share with the guys, it was such a relief. When I walked to my first AMP meeting, it was like the first time I walked in a Pentecostal church.
Mm.
I was with a group of guys, and they understood where I was coming from, and they could relate, and I could relate to them, and I could be myself, and I could share anything I wanted to in the group, and nobody ran screaming. They accepted me. They shared things that were similar to mine and things that were at times were worse than mine. And we just have that community, that camaraderie, and we support each other with the group meet chats and with the recovery meetings. And then we got into the step study, and I'm on step 8 right now, fixing to go to step 9. And it's been amazing. That answer your question?
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
So both of you,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, I digress. You go.
I was just saying having that prayer support because there's other groups out there and my counselor would direct me that way, but having an apostolic prayer group and that apostolic, people that pray the way you believe in prayer and knowing the sincerity, I don't know, that to me, that was the biggest thing. Just having someone with like mind and like faith praying for me, and I could trust those prayers. And not that I don't trust everybody's prayers, but it's just different to have that prayer support.
So both of you are part of groups that are the AMP recovery groups. David, you're a part of AMP Recovery for Men, and the website for that is amprecovery.org, correct?
Yes.
amprecovery.org. And I believe, if you can, give us kind of a schedule where things are now as far as groups and the different kinds of groups and support that's available for the men, and then have Sandy do the same for the wives group.
There are 3 meetings currently for the men, 3 recovery groups. We have one at 7 Central on Monday nights and one at 9 Central on Monday nights. That's for the Pacific Coast, the West Coast group. We also have one at Thursday, 7 Central. And then right now we're doing a step study on Saturdays. Every other Saturday is my step study. And we've just started a new step study group for the guys that just came on. And I'm attending those as a trainer so that I can lead step study groups in the future. They're talking about starting another step study in the fall. And so people don't have to wait as long to get into a step study because it's like a 15-month process to go completely through the 12 steps. So I'm training to be able to lead a step study group, and we'll probably start one of those up in the fall.
So that sounds great. There's a whole lot more going on than it was a year ago where there was one meeting a week. And what's do you know what the number is of men that have plugged into that currently?
Currently on the group me, we have, I know it's over 80. And attending the meetings, we average probably 50 men in the meetings between the
on
three
a
groups?
weekly, on
On
a
a weekly
weekly basis. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I think we're getting close overall to guys that are plugged in. Not everybody is there every week, but I think we're getting close to 100. And if I'm correct, I think the goal by the end of this year is to have 250 men. Is my understanding, and so a lot of work going on that's been going on behind the scenes, so to speak, of men preparing themselves not just to be ministered to, but also to minister to others as they come along. So we're appreciative of that process for sure. And then Sandy, you started going to the AMP recovery group for betrayed wives, which is called Hope for Healing. But give us a bit of help us understand what the premise or the purpose of that group is.
That group is to help and support and as well as educate betrayed spouses. Right now it's just wives. I believe they talked about it would eventually have to be opened up to men as well. But right now it is just the wives. And we have right now what we have, like in my personal group, we have two different types of classes. We have the support and we have the recovery group, but it's the same ladies in that group. And now we've started a second support and they will go into their recovery. And we're doing a curriculum on one is on boundaries. And right now we're doing we just finished a curriculum on recovery. It was a 12-week study and we work that together. We have them on Tuesday day and Tuesday night. So it's a Tuesday and we meet at all together, and each separate group, if I'm making myself clear, our group just finished the 12-week study. We've started a new one, but we've had another group come up now, another recovery and support. And so what they'll find is they will come into a support group, and it's done through GroupMe, so that if they come in a session where they've already gotten too far into their study, well, then they have the support and they can get the support from the ladies or the people that are over it, Dorian or Erica or Lana. And then of course we all support one another. But then when they go into recovery, then it's a separate chat room where we only discuss the recovery aspect of it, because it is different. Recovery as far as when you first come in, and we're all in different stages in our group, but they come in such different stages, and there's so much to learn. There's terminology that triggers or different things that betrayal trauma. I remember the first time I heard betrayal trauma and it was described to me. I'm like, all these years I had this and never even realized it had a name. Sometimes it's good to have a name for what you're feeling, and you'll learn that terminology. And that's what you learn in the support group. And then we go into recovery, where we work on whether our marriages make it or not. We've got to make it. We as a person have got to make it. And that's where we get into with recovery. We've got to recover for us to be able to go on in life. And so we work on everything recovery to recover ourselves, and with the push of, because we're going to push marriage. We're going to, there are going to be people that come in like me and I'm done, but we're going to push that. It can be done. We're doing it. We've probably got 25 ladies that are doing it, and we've had them come in just like me and I'm done. And through support and recovery, we've seen those marriages turn around. And it's really neat to watch as you see, they're coming in with these problems and these hurts and they're broken. But as they begin to recover and they apply the tools that we're receiving in support and in recovery, because we receive tools, we receive education, we receive their support, we see those marriages turning around. And as the husband is working on the male side of AMP, you can just see it come together. And it's just it's just wonderful to see as they come in behind you, because I'm just a little further along than some that are coming in. And as they come behind you and they're broken and you remember that, and it's kind of like, it makes you really upset sometimes to see them because you remember being there, but then you also remember that you came out of that and that your husband came out. And so you can say, hey, my husband did that, but look, this is what happened. And this is what I did. I drew this boundary, or, they really pushed boundaries. I did this. This is how I handled it. And so you just gain those tools. Like I said, I went in with, we weren't going to make it. I couldn't do it. And within a few weeks, I thought, this is doable. I think I can do this. So
there's hope.
there's hope. Hope for
Oh.
him.
So one of the things, yeah, hope for healing. One of the, and let me clarify something that you said earlier, just so there's no confusion, that there's going to be, at some point, there will be a group for men, betrayed husbands, but they won't be part of the same group. So we'll
No.
keep them separate, and then the wives will sit. So what I've seen is that hearing from the men is that, before they come into the support system and the recovery groups, is that they're all alone, and there's this high level of shame, and that they got to battle just to admit that, there's an issue, there's a problem going on in my life. I got to deal with this. But then finding others that are the same, that have and are battling to the same degree, or a little bit more, a little bit less. I got to think that there's some similarity there between the men as to the wives as well, because I hear some of the things I hear from wives of husbands that are addicted to whatever level they are is the same, a lot of the same verbiage, shame, and they don't want anybody to know that, and they think they're the only wives out there that have a husband like this, but that's not true, is it?
No, it's not true. And honestly, there's another lady in there that had been battling it just as long as I have. Like I said, I battled this. We had been married at the time for 35 years and alone, totally alone, never went to anybody. In fact, when the affair occurred, he went to the pastor, but I never said what I suspected. I never went to anybody. And so I did this alone, but yet, you come in and you're not alone. You begin to realize that there are others out there, and you have that support. And it's also somebody you can talk to and just tell your deepest. You can't just tell anybody, I need you to pray about this, because it's so deep and it's so dark, and you can't believe that it's out there, and that it's happening to you. But then when you find out that others are going through the same thing, is that answering your question? I probably got a little off rabbit track, but no, it's having that. You hate that that's how you had to meet these people, but you're thankful that they're there and that you're not alone, and that and there is someone to pray with you, and it's been amazing, because when we started the group, it was like September or so, August or September for the ladies, the first group. Mm-hmm. And we were all a little shy, but now they're just a lot, they're more free, they're freer and more comfortable with one another. And we discuss things that I never thought I could discuss with anybody, not even them. Deep, dark hurts or things that had happened that, that in your marriage, or, that you just can't discuss with anybody. You can't just put that out there, but here you can be open, you can be honest, you can be raw, you can cry and pray, and you can even have a bad day and come in and just, you may be all wrong, but there again, even when you're wrong, they lead you in gentleness and in love and in prayer, and say, well, let's look at it differently. Let's look at it this way. You're just having, women are emotional, they're hormonal, and sometimes we just have those days. And when those days affect what we're going through, it's just a nightmare. And so sometimes we have to be redirected in that area, and they do. It's wonderful.
Yeah, let me make one more, just a follow-up statement on that, and then Brother Lewis can help wrap us up here. But one of the, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong here, but one of the really important things that we've tried to instill is this sense of confidentiality and a safe place that you can go to where there's other brothers and sisters and you've already said that you talk about things that you never would have thought. How comfortable are you? Have we developed our confidential setting?
Oh, it's very confidential. It's very, very confidential. There's some things I don't discuss with my husband. Most things I don't discuss. But it is very confidential. We don't discuss the private part of it. I may say, hey, if someone says, hey, I need you to help me pray about my child. And, those things he and I will discuss. I don't discuss it with anybody. They don't either. I feel like that I could tell them anything, and I don't have a shadow of a doubt that it's not going to go further than where it is. You have to understand, all of these ladies have the same fear. All of these ladies have felt the same way. They don't want it. They're ashamed. And so they're not about to spread anything that they wouldn't want spread. And so, yes, it is very secretive. It is very, very, very private. I'm not afraid at all.
You agree with that, David?
I do the same thing with the men. What's in the group stays in the group. And that's one of the freedoms, is that you can share whatever and you don't have to worry about it going anywhere. It's very relieving to be able to just to know that you can be open like that without fear of it getting out or being talked about outside of the meeting.
I think that this is probably, we could probably say this every time we do an interview, but honestly, this is probably the best interview I think we've done, because you guys you're a testimony, and you've already helping people tonight that are watching this. I can assure you of that. And on that note, if you could give us, and we'll close out here in a moment. I'm gonna have ask you guys to pray in a moment, but what if you could just share, and you've been doing it, but maybe a succinct statement of hope. What message of hope would you give to somebody who's online watching tonight, or maybe will be viewing it in the future? What would you say to them?
Don't be afraid. Reach out and make that first step and get in contact with one of the groups, whether it's men or women. Get in contact with one of the groups and get plugged in, because there's hope out there and there's healing out there. And you don't have to carry it by yourself. You don't have to be alone. You don't have to believe the lies of the devil anymore.
Sandy, do you have an addendum to that?
Yes, that you are not alone. And this is not a battle you have to fight alone, because that was the hardest part of it all. Was doing this alone and not having anybody. There are women out there, there are men out there that will pray with you, that will get up with you in the night if they have to, and pray with you and chat with you. We do Marco Polos where we go back and forth. If you just need to see a face, but there are people there I could call any time of the day or night, no matter what, or message, and know that I can share, or I can ask for prayer, or I need support, or I need direction or instruction, and know that they're there and that they really mean what what they say, that they are going to pray. And we don't have to do this alone, and don't do it alone. It's just too hard.
I love it. I love it that particularly Dr. Surstad just being in, kind of on the ground floor and seeing what's happening. It's just amazing. And your testimony tonight is fantastic. So on that note, would you lead us in prayer to close us out here? Lead us in prayer for those who are participating by watching tonight, those who will watch in the future. Probably somebody tonight are hearing your words and they're kind of contemplating and mulling over if they want to take the leap, am I safe, secure? confidentiality. You've addressed all of that. Could you lead us in prayer as we end up here, just addressing the future for some people viewing us here tonight?
Yes.
Yeah.
Your heavenly God.
Lord
We
Jesus,
come to
we
you,
thank you for the
God,
opportunity to
asking
share our
for-
story tonight. We personally thank you for the
asking
AMP
for
ministry
touch those
and the hope and healing
that
it provides.
this
We
testimony,
give you
God,
glory for
this
the restoration in
story.
our marriage and our family.
We
We thank you for Dr.
Father,
Surstead and Brother Lewis and all of those who have the burden and
God, for the
vision
peace
and a
the joy,
sacrifice to
God,
bring
the
deliverance
love that you placed here, the
and hope
healing.
to the darkness in this world.
God,
The burden to
reach
see
those
marriages and
right
families
now, God,
restored,
that
to come
might
against
hear
divorce and
this,
the apostolic
that are
movement.
alone and
We know that
hurting,
there are
God.
others who desperately need this ministry.
God,
Our prayer tonight is that our story go
restore us.
forth and fall into the hands of those
Help
living
us
in
to
darkness and
reach for
hurting.
them. Help us to
Please
see
deliver
them.
those in
Help
bondage
them to
and the
see
betrayed
us.
spouses that are hurting. We ask it in
In
Jesus' name.
Jesus' name.
Amen. It just feels so good right now, because you can just feel the Spirit just flowing out. We used to say on the airwaves, but you can just feel it just flowing out. Somebody's being ministered to here tonight. I can promise you. And on
Brother
that
Lewis,
note,
if I would have, I wouldn't have chosen this journey, but honestly, the marriage that I got out of this journey was worth every bit of it.
yeah, that's awesome. Amen. Thank you for that. You can't improve on what's been saying here tonight. I just want to say for anybody watching, there is hope. It's already been said. You're not alone. That's been said. There's healing. We serve a God of restoration. The Apostle Paul said, "Blessed be God, the Father of mercies and the God of all comfort, who comforteth us in all our tribulation, wherein we can comfort others with the comfort we have been comforted with." We have just heard a great testimony here tonight of a brother and sister who have received comfort by others who were comforted. And that's what ministry is about. And we're creating and we're nurturing a safe space for you. And so invite a friend, invite somebody to watch our online presentations here. Go to apostolicmoralpurity.com. I know Dr. Schertz will probably reiterate that in a minute, but we have resources for you. There's healing for you. And thank you for joining us here tonight, and God bless you. Dr. Schertz, this has been fantastic. And I know you got to be excited. Why don't you take us home?
Yep, this has been really good. It's an honor to be a part of this, and just sitting here thinking about all the time that has been invested. There are over, oh goodness, there's over 20 people, maybe closer to 30 people that have really invested themselves into what's going on with apostolic moral purity and the recovery aspect of it. And I'm very grateful and honored to be a part of it. We did an accounting, it's not long ago, about a month ago. I sent out, we're looking to pursue some grant funding for AMP, but I sent out and asked how many volunteer hours that you've put in to Apostolic Moral Purity to this point, and it was over 15,000 hours in the last 2.5 years that have been, and we're all volunteers. Every one of
We
those
are products
hours,
of that, though.
and these folks tonight are that we've been with, are a direct product. And there's others that are coming along. There's others that we'll hear from, I'm sure, in the future. But I'm just very grateful. We finished up, and Brother Lewis, you alluded to this earlier on about our conference that we had and we put out there. I just want to mention that our next conference is scheduled, and there's going to be more official updates on this, I'm sure, but May 16, 17, and 18 of 2024 will be our next conference. It's scheduled to be in Austin, Texas. And I'll save everything else for to drop little things in the future as we go forward. But get that on your calendar. Looking for a great conference there next year. A lot of things happening. We're grateful. Just remember the website for recovery, amprecovery.org, amprecovery.org. And you can find right now that's predominantly the men's site, but you scroll to the bottom, I believe there's information on how to access the wives group. There's some changes that'll be going on in the future there to make it more user friendly for everybody. But right now, amprecovery.org. And then our website is apostolicmoralpurity.com. Follow us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube, and just be a part. Spread the word, tell others. And feel free. We also have, I don't say this very often, there's a donate button on apostolicmoralpurity.com. Don't be bashful. You're hearing some great things, and several of you have been very helpful, and that's a big part of why we've been able to get this far. But that access button, that donate button, does work. So feel free to give it a shot. I want to say God bless all of you. Look forward to the future, but we're thankful for the past and the present. And we'll see you next time. God bless all of you in Jesus' name.